What's going on, everyone? It is me, Troi, and I'm here, of course, again, again with another video. All these flourishes and stuff. Anyway, so I just want to go ahead and not actually write, but go ahead and talk about just, do what I always do on this channel, which is talk about books, expunge my beliefs and my feelings about certain books, and just share my reading journey. And I actually had to make a note because there's several things I wanted to talk about. But the first thing I want to launch this off with is about my experience reading Patricia Cornwell's latest book called Sharp Force, which came out at the beginning of October. This is the 29th book in her Case Scarpetta series. It has our not our criminal investigator, because that's kind of like not really what she is, but it has our morgue technician, our famous morgue technician, Case Scarpetta, going to this island where there's a slew of little paranormal related activities revolving this phantom ghostly figure who is known as a slasher, murdering people. That these are murder mysteries in a lot of ways, with a little touch of procedural. But anyway, y'all know that I'm a super fan of this series, but I have got to say that Sharp Force, my interest, it was like somebody stuck a pin in a balloon and it just deflated. I can't nail exactly what was going on with me reading this book, but I will say this, then this might bring a little bit of color to the issue. At the beginning of the book, one of the characters, Pete Marino, as we all know, he was driving in his car, and Case Scarpetta, told in the first person. She was speaking to him on the telephone. And there was this mention of Pete Marino listening to a certain podcaster's podcast. And I'm just going to give the initials because I don't like inviting some of this nastiness that's going on around here lately my way. But this is a woman podcaster. Her initials are MK. And she's recently been under fire for some very troubling remarks she's made. But this was pre these remarks, as I've always known of this character. Well, she is a character to me, but I've known of this woman, this podcaster. And so when I was reading that and listening to Patricia Cornwell, some woman, a writer of her intellect and understanding of things and the world and crime and, injustice, mostly mentioning this podcaster's name, I was like, Patricia Cornwell, you are not about to sit here and play in my damn face, okay, with this mess. You're not going to play in my face with this mess. I'm not interested, none whatsoever. I don't care how people's, politics or right, left, whatever. You're not going to play in my face with this person, this disgusting person. And that I tried to push past that, but my interest in Sharp Force from that point forward, it was withering very, very rapidly to the point where I even contemplated returning the book because I'm not gonna have Patricia Cornwell playing my face like that. Like, I'm sorry, if that's what you want to do, go ahead, let me know so that I can get the hell out of here, okay? Because I'm not going there with you. And she even likes a certain person who typically just I don't know. I'm at that point where me personally, it's like I don't have the energy to play with authors. This is not the space for, especially those who got all this money. I don't have. I'm not playing with her. I'm not playing with her. So I was like, Patricia Cornwell, you got to go play in somebody else's face with that mess, and we'll see about next year, whatever you have coming up. So anyway, I just skimmed through Sharp Force. I don't even know that. Like, after that, I was just like, I don't know. I wasn't engaged with just about anything. So what I wanted to do instead was as you guys know me, I typically, when I have trouble reading an author, I still kind of hold on. I'm very loyal in that sense where I like to give authors multiple tries until they finally just kind of stick the knife in me, which Patricia Cornwell was getting very close to doing. But this author or this particular series is something that I have expressed numerous times on this channel over the years that I have trouble connecting with. And that is actually the Miss Marple series by Agatha Christie. We all know Miss Marple. I don't even have to go into, all this other kind of stuff. But y'all know when it came to the first book in the series, the what is it, A Murder in the Vicarage or something like that, and then the second book, The Body in the Library, there's a child out there screaming somewhere. Patricia Cornwell must be out here chasing her and trying to take away her rights, or facilitate taking away her rights. But I've always, had that hesitation when it came to reading Miss Marple, because I've always hoped that she would play a much more prominent role within the mysteries that she's in, and I found myself disappointed in having not seen that in the first and second book. But that back burner, that eager reader of me, that reader who, although I really have some side-eye feelings when it comes to Agatha Christie as is, although I did love And Then There Were None, but we know what that original title was, and I have every right to feel that way given my complexion. I still was hungry to really get a good understanding of Miss Marple. And I think that has a lot to do with just my foundational love of mysteries. Like, I want to get this. And I did. I got it. I was so disappointed by Patricia Cornwell books and was so hungry for some just classic old mysteries that I gave Miss Marple another go. And I read 5 Miss Marple books. One of them was a e-read later. Well, one was an audiobook later on, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I read 5 Miss Marple books in the month of October. I read The Moving Finger because I had to read in order. I had read A Murder Is Announced. I read They Do It With Mirrors. I read A Pocket Full of Rye, and I read 4.5 from Paddington, which I think the North American version, they changed the title to What Miss Gillicuddy Saw or something like that. I read 5 Miss Marple books within the month of October, and I was glad to do so. But about the time I got to the 5th book, 4.5 from Paddington, I was wore the freak out, and I was burnt out, and I even wanted to try to go further and read the complete pillar titles of the Miss Marple series, which I had like maybe about 5 more left, and I was just like, I'm kind of done. I'm through. Thank you for reconnecting with me in life. Me and Miss Marple, we had a lot of work to do, but our friendship came together. And I think just really by, as I expressed that eagerness to get to understand this character, get to understand the prominence of this work, or this body of work from Agatha Christie, and, like I said, in its role within the mystery genre, I got it. I pretty much understood it because it's another collection of books that I read that made me focus on following the specific sleight of hand procedurals that were delivered by this author. So I understood. And a lot of times when I was reading these books, I was like, I also additionally understood how a number of different authors did it better than she did. Like, she laid that groundwork. She crawled so they could run or something like that. But how they eventually did it better. The thing that burnt me out the most when it came to having read these 5 books was simply just the setup. I was kind of over the whole makeup of this affluent family in this manor house, and that's where the murders often take place. They have money. I was kind of over that whole setup. But as it came to a lot of the different how she dressed up her mysteries, a lot of them were really interesting, because The Moving Finger was probably my least enthusiastic one, because it had a lot to do with, chain letters being delivered to these people within the community who more or less have some kind of culpability and some nefarious activities, like sleeping with somebody else's husband or wife, or, having committed a crime like stealing. So that was probably the least moving to me. Second to that, A Murder Is Announced. A Murder Is Announced was probably my favorite one, and that had the most, undoubtedly the most resonance and in thirst and whatever you want to say, calling for me, had a lot to do with who the culprit was within that book. I loved me a good freaking villain. I love me a really good villain. A villain who is of a certain persuasion when it comes to genders. And one of the lines in that book that really stood out the most to me that Miss Marple said was, I think it was something to the effect of, one could get away with anything if they had enough audacity. I was like, ooh, baby. I was like, ooh, I love that. Look, I'm doing all this, but I was like, ooh, I love that line. I will say this as a little point note to put here. While I was reading these 5 books, I was actually taking snapshots because I checked them out from the library. I was taking snapshots of certain passages as I was going along, but A Murder As Announced was my favorite. It was clearly my favorite, and it had a lot to do with the villain in that particular book. I loved it. I loved it. And then I read They Do It With Mirrors. That was They Do It With Mirrors is probably is I will say it was my second favorite read of the collection that I read within the month of October, because there was a point where, oh gosh, how do you set this up? There's a point where two individuals were locked behind a door while a murder was occurring in another area. But I just like how Christie somehow would somehow I knew what was going on in the Murders Announced. I knew what was going on. I love that setup. But somehow when it came to They Do It With Mirrors, I don't know how she really did it, but it kind of coasted past me about the possibilities of how one individual within that particular setup of Manor House was murdered. I was like, oh shoot, why didn't I think of that? So I was like, why didn't I think of that before? And that's kind of what I mean as it comes to somebody who loves mysteries, because when you get to the end of the book, you are given every single bit of clue as to why or how a murder had occurred. And I'm looking like, damn, I didn't even pay attention to the fact that such and such character was, I'm trying not to get nothing in the way, but such and such character was, we'll say, out of breath. Like it didn't even cross my mind. But They Do It With Mirrors was damn good. It was damn good. It was right there underneath my love of A Murder Is Announced. The only thing is, like I said, that the villain, the villain in The Murder Is Announced is what sold that one to me. Oh, I love that person. Ooh. So the next one I read was A Pocket Full of Rye, and it had a lot to do with this business, this activity that take place overseas in Africa, a mining accident that is coming back to haunt this family, this affluent family. But what she played with a lot in this one is a villain using distance to manipulate a murder. I think that this one was disappointing to me because by the end of the book, I still didn't kind of grasp how things came about, how the villain was the one that, you know, encouraged another person. I can't get nothing away because that's how, I know everybody knows about these books at this point, but for those who are curious, that's the joy of reading these books, is trying to maneuver past Christie's puzzle itself. And if you already know what's going on, you're probably not going to find yourself as enthusiastic to try to get ahead of her in that manner. But because even I didn't know a lot about these books in those terms, and that's what made it such a surprise and an enjoyment for me. So I'm not trying to give anything away, but basically, A Pocket Full of Rye was kind of mid for me. It didn't really close out as well as I had hoped it would, but you can't always win them. So then I read 4.5 from Paddington, and this is where the burnout started to come in, but it didn't initially come in that way because the premise of this murder was so enthralling that it was just like, dang, I'm gonna stick to this one for a long time. But once the Manor House issues and the family and the twisted all these things, and it just petered out. But the setup is so wonderful to me because it had to do with one of Miss Marple's friends traveling on the train, and as the two trains were traveling on the track, her train and then another one, she witnessed a lady being strangled in the other train and thrown out the window. Or there was no body found, so they had to find it later on somewhere outside the window. But the thing that I liked about this book is that Miss Marple employed one of her friends, a very fairly stoic and pragmatic character, who infiltrated into the manor house closest to where the body was probably thrown, and to just, beat around the bush, the weeds, or whatever to find the body, to confirm her friend, Miss Marple's friends, what she'd witnessed. And Miss Marple's infiltrating force did find the body inside of a sarcophagus on this particular manor, on this estate. So I almost wished that the discovery of the body didn't happen so quickly. I almost wish that instead of us discovering the body and then being launched into this is an actual murder, that the entirety of the story was about finding the body, if that makes sense. So that was kind of the only thing, but I'm not a mystery writer. I would really have to kind of study that story to see how that could have been done. But nonetheless, unfortunately, like I said, by that time, by that fifth book, I was kind of burnt out. I was like, okay, well, it launched off really great and promising and very much fluttering all of my mystery senses. But by the time we got into the juggling, like I said, the round table of the various, people, those brothers, the sisters, the cantankerous grandfather character in the manor house, I was like, okay, I'm kind of done. But at the end of the day, what I will just say is that I enjoy reading all of these books. I enjoy tapping into my reading spirit with them. Like I said, I've always had hesitations with Miss Marple. I always giving her the side eye, but really can't do nothing about that nowadays because that lady been gone for so long. But I guess you could say I finally got my Miss Marple shoes, and I am willing and excited and ready to continue to read the rest of the Miss Marple series at whatever given point where the little digression that I'm taking right now is over with. I still love Perot more, I think. But when I think about it now, I haven't read as much Perot as I've read Marple as of now. So I got a lot of work to do in terms of those things. So with that out of the way, I have done some reading in the month of November here. But I just want to kind of stick to what I'm currently reading. And I'm currently reading Michelle Williams' Checking In, which is how getting real about depression saved my life and can save yours. I started this book yesterday, and I'm already about 58 pages away from the end, and I'm going to finish this book today. As you guys know, this is Michelle Williams of Destiny's Child. I bought this book because, number one, I want to hear her voice, and number two, in terms of anxiety and depression and somebody who often deals with these things, I wanted to hear her voice in terms of how she deals with it. And I will say this right now, I will say this as clear as day is night, and whatever this truck is riding down the street, this book is very good to me. I love the candor, I love the honesty, I love the freshness of her voice. There's some technical things in here that I could probably address, but she does write in a fashion where it's much more diary driven or journal driven. But she does recount a bit of autobiography with the subject of depression and anxiety. But like I said, the point that I'm loving most is the fact that I can relate to a lot of what she is speaking to. Which is exactly why I chose to pick up this book anyways, because I needed to find that relation as someone who deals with a fair amount of anxiety and depression. And so I have found myself not only keeping tabs, but also taking snapshots of several of the things that she mentions within the book. And one of the ones that I want to bring up is one, I see, like I told you, I take snapshots. You probably can't see that, but one of the things she writes is anxiety is not a representation of truth. Anxiety is a representation of what we fear. That is the absolute truth. Another one that she wrote that I want to share, because my plan was to type these things down and then kind of like stick them around where I can always refer to them. But there were several of them that she wrote. Here's one. One of the biggest differences between anxiety and intuition is the way they make you feel. Since intuition is from God, which I'm not, I mean, I believe in God. Obviously, I don't see how people, I couldn't manage without, but I'm not super like religious. But it should leave you feeling a little more relaxed, a little more at peace. But anxiety is not of God. I personally think anxiety is from the pit of hell, and it comes on you with a cold grip around your heart, making you feel nauseous, panicky, and unsure. Yeah, I can relate. And look, I'm dropping my phone and stuff. But yeah, that's this was yeah, I was really kind of surprised. I was just like, I don't know. But I was really kind of surprised. And I was kind of mad at her several times too, girl. I was mad at her sometimes about some of her decisions, but I understood because she addressed why certain mental illnesses, mental health concerns got in the way of some of her promising avenues or ventures. So I'm currently reading Checking In, and I might go to the library today here on Sunday and finish it up or not. I don't really know for sure. So the last thing I want to talk about per my list is some upcoming releases that I am super excited to get to. These are probably the last 3 books I'll be buying for the year. And so Tuesday on the 18th, the third and final book in Nora Roberts' Lost Brides trilogy will be releasing. Low key Friday, I snuck off to Books a Million to try to to try to see if some unemployed actually accidentally put a copy out. I found something else though, but still they hadn't. But anyway, we're gonna get to the last book in the Lost Brides trilogy. I cannot believe I am fangirling over Nora, fanboiling or fangirling. Hell, some people say I'm both of them, but anyway, I can't believe I'm fanning out over Nora Roberts' release, given that I love J.D. Robb, and I stop heaven and earth if possible to get a J.D. Robb book. But now I'm doing it for a Nora Roberts book, and I'm hoping this don't turn into a thing, because I ain't really trying to keep up with Nora Roberts like that, okay? I like her, but I ain't trying to keep up with her like that. But I love the Lost Bride trilogy. I can't wait to see how this trilogy ends. And this is probably my favorite cover out of all of the 3. So yes, the Lost Brides trilogy ends. We're going to finally see how Sonia McTavish and her boyfriend Troi, how they end up riddling or relieving this manor house that she's inherited from all the various ghosts, but one particular malevolent ghost named Hester Dobbs, which I'm going to be sad when Hester Dobbs gets out that house. Oh my God, we need her. But anyway, I'm glad that's going to be ending there. And then 2 books I'm looking forward to that are going to be releasing in the month of December, which is right on the top. December 2nd, Edge by Tracy Clark comes out. This is the 4th book in her Harriet Foster series. I am super happy that there's a 4th book. Because, when it comes to Black women writing mysteries, they kind of cut y'all, they cut y'all off at like 3 or so sometimes. So that pisses me off. Really, it does. But that's my whole, that's why I'm here, to make sure that people understand and see these books. But Edge comes out on December 2nd. I cannot wait. Y'all know I freaking love Tracy Clark. I freaking love her Harriet Foster series, which, her previous series had 4 books too. But the point is that it comes out on December 2nd. And this has our Chicago homicide detective investigating a slew of crimes revolving around this drug called Edge that's, littering the streets of Chicago and taking bodies, minds, and souls along the way. It's a type of opioid that has infested the Chicago city. So we are going to be reading Edge right away. After that, I'm so happy to say is that Valerie Wilson Wesley is coming out with a new book in a new series, and it's going to be released in hardcover, but it's going to be out on December 16th. So it's going to be probably the week later, I believe. I ain't got a calendar, but it's going to be called The Mysterious Death of Junetta Plum, which is the first book in Valerie Wilson Wesley's Harriet Stone. There's Harry Foster, then there's Harriet Stone. I don't know why all these Harry. Why y'all like all these old names? But anyway, this is only rightfully so because this series takes place. Harriet Stone takes place in 1926 Harlem, but it has to do with this woman named Harriet Stone who is very much educated. She's raising this foster child, and they move into this boarding house where Harriet's cousin once, I think, ran or run or whatever how you say it. But the point is that her cousin Junetta has been murdered, and then of course Harriet begins to investigate this crime in 1920s Harlem. So Valerie Wilson Wesley is back. I am so happy. I hope that this series, I don't know, her last trilogy, the second book was the best part of that particular series. But the point is that I'm gonna always follow Valerie Wilson Wesley wherever she may go. She can go to Antarctica, and I'm taking my tail. I do want to go to the library today. I just thought about something. She could go to China. I'm taking my tail. I would go there anyway. I would never go to Antarctica. Okay, you have to pay me to go. Let me go to China too, but really, you have to pay me. But anyway, the point is that I'm excited. Y'all, I can just go ahead and say this right now. When it comes to Black women writing mysteries, 2026 is going to be opening off with a banger. It's going to be opening off with a banger. I'm telling y'all, Nicole Glover is coming back in January with a 4th book in her Magic and Mayhem series. Nadine in March alone, I believe there's three, but one of them is missing from my brain right at the moment. March alone is going to be heavy. Nadine Matheson is coming back with her fourth uh, Angelica Henley series, and the incomparable Faye Snowden is finally coming back with the third book in her Raven Burns series. That to me is just super exciting. I wish she could write these faster, but I think it's been like 3 years since the last book, but the third book is coming out in March. And there's another book that's coming out in March, and it seems to escape me, but I want to make sure that I put it here. So I am going to go through my phone and find what book it is that I got saved up to pre-order. But even just those aside, January, like I said, with Nicole Glover is going to be amazing. And then on top of that, June Shang, Fly Wild Swans, My Mother, Myself in China is going to be coming out on January 13th. Cannot wait. Cannot wait. There's another book that comes out in the early part of January that I'm looking forward to. And I really want to share this book here. Man, my list is just it's crazy. It's crazy. And that's why I can't read everything. It just keeps going and going and going. And I don't care. Oh, The Great Disillusionment of Nick and Jay by Ryan Douglas comes out in January. I cannot wait to give that a shot. There's something else, but there's always something else. But anyway, guys, that is it. I just want to share that with you guys and just kind of steamroll just a general catch up of what's been going on with me, what I've been reading and stuff. And I hope y'all are being safe out there and remembering when I told y'all earlier this year that the darkness will consume itself. And baby, it's consuming. It is consuming, okay? God do not like ugly. He do not like ugly. And hell is waiting for a lot of people. But nobody who watch my stuff, cause we all angels over here. But them folks over there, Miss Patricia Cornwell trying to run over there. You can run over there. Okay, anyway, that's it. Bye. See y'all later.